Welcome into the I-80 Boys College Football Week 2 preview video. Chris, starting us off here, we got Texas versus Michigan, the preview. And I'll start us off talking about the Longhorns here, Chris. Look, coming into this one, Texas, they're coming off a 52-0 beating of Colorado State, all right? Quinn Ewers had 260 yards and 3 touchdowns, right? And I know it's Colorado State, it's week 1, and everyone's going to, throw all the fire on the, gasoline on the fire, as it were, right? But I want to look at this and kind of translate this to what this means when they face Michigan. Look, I'm looking for Texas to be able to take advantage of Michigan's pass defense, right? They did allow 235 yards to Fresno State, and Chris will tell us a little more about all this stuff a little later here. But look, Ewers is going to look to lean on guys like Ryan Wingo and Isaiah Bond. They both accounted for 9 targets in that game on Saturday, right? Jarrett Gibson and Jaden Blue, they stepped up, right? We know Texas took some hits early this offseason in the running game. They had 2 guys go down, I feel like in back-to-back weeks or even inside the same week. So that was pretty rough for Texas. But they were able to run the ball, I thought, in this game, right? They're going to need somebody to step up, though, right? Michigan only allowed 9 yards rushing against Fresno State. So we know what Michigan is. I think we knew what they're going to be coming into it. But look, Texas on defense, that was the big question that I had going into this one, right? They only gave up 192 yards of total offense to the Rams, which is pretty damn good for a Texas defense, right? The question I have, is it getting better? Or is this just an outlier of a game where you're like, okay, it's Colorado State. Obviously, you can't really gain anything from that, right? We talked about it too. Michigan only had 269 yards of, total offense. And it looks like they're going to rotate, Davis Warren and Alex Orji in and out. So can Texas kind of solve that whole equation? One area, and I'd like to point this out, Chris, Texas had 0 sacks in this game. Could not get to the quarterback, right? The key for Texas, I think, is going to be shutting down the Wolverines and, Edwards in this talented run game, right? And forcing Michigan to kind of have to throw that football, I think, right? Chris, I'll defer to you. I'll kick it back to you. Let me hear a little bit about Michigan.
Yeah, I watched a majority of this football game this weekend against Fresno State, and, the score indicated 30-10, right? This game was a hell of a lot closer than that for 3.5 quarters, essentially. And I'm not here to shit on Fresno State, but Fresno State threw some interceptions in that game, one early, one late, that put Michigan in field goal touchdown range about inside their 30. So with that being said, you touched on a little bit, the quarterback issue. I was not real impressed with Davis Warren. He was 15 of 25 for 118 yards. He had the 1 touchdown, the 1 INT. Alex Orji, they brought him in, which we kind of figured, Mr. Poor Man's Jalen Milroe out there didn't throw the ball much with him. He was 1 of 2 for 3 yards in that 1 passing TD early, but he ran the ball for 5 times, which is what he's supposed to do for 32 yards. Don't know really what to think of him, necessarily yet. I don't know how they're going to go about this splitting quarterbacks. I'm not a big fan of the rotating a quarterback in and out type of thing, just not my deal. But more importantly, and something I wanted to touch on a little bit was Donovan Edwards. What the hell happened there? I expected this kid to get well over 20 carries in this game. He only got 11. He rushed for 27 yards, Christian, which was surprising. The other kid, the Mullings kid, he got 15 carries and he went for 92 yards. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe they're using the dual, running back setup like they have with Corum and Edwards last year, but a little shocked by that. Maybe Michigan fans can let me know what the deal was there. I guess I'm not really sure. Colston Loveland looked great. He looked like the best receiving option out there. He's one of the players back for Michigan off of last year's national title team. He had 8 receptions for 87 yards and 1 touchdown. He's one of the best tight ends in the country, in my opinion. You touched on it, the defense. We expected Michigan's defense to be great this year. That's just what they are. They came out, got 3 sacks, come up with 2 interceptions. One was basically one was for a touchdown in that game. I don't have a lot to add to Michigan's defense. We all expect them to be great. They're going to have a tough test against Texas's offense this week, though, as you alluded to. But here's my deal here. This game in particular, Christian, and I'm gonna give my prediction first here. I said it before the season started. I expected this game to be close. Now, if you're a Michigan fan right now, you got to be a little bit worried, I would say, by the way they looked against Fresno State. It wasn't clean. I know it was week 1. I get all that. Texas did what they were supposed to, rolled over, obviously, Colorado State. But I'm going to give you my score here. And I had to think about this one for a while, and I know I'm going to sound a little crazy. I have Texas 24, Michigan 20. I think this game is going to be really, really close. I think it's going to be low scoring. Texas hasn't faced a defense like Michigan in a couple years. Michigan's defense is elite. Last year we look back at Texas, they played Washington in the playoffs. Washington's defense wasn't elite last year. They were good, but they weren't elite, not like Michigan. Those Big 12 teams, a lot of them don't have that kind of defense like what Michigan's going to bring to the table this weekend. So, I have Texas 24, Michigan 20. Christian, what's your thoughts? And tell me why I'm wrong.
Man, I don't think this is going to be a close game, Chris. I got Texas 38, Michigan 17. I just think, look,
Okay.
like you said, I mean, Michigan's going to face this high octane offense, and I understand what they did to Washington last year in the national championship game, but most of those guys are not really roaming around Michigan right now. I know, hey, they still have some pieces back, right? But like we said, Chris, look, Texas, they can put up points, and Michigan's biggest issue on offense is themselves and figuring out how to kind of scheme this, right? I don't see how Michigan really puts up a whole lot of points in this game to kind of keep, pace with Texas. I know Texas is going to put up points. Can Michigan? That's the big question I have in this one.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm we're obviously on two different teams here, essentially, like I said, and that's all right. I just think that Michigan's defense is that good, and I think they'll slow down Ewers a little bit. Now, I'm with you on the offensive side of the ball as far as Michigan goes in this game. They're going to have to figure something out. My only hope here for Michigan is that they can run the ball against Texas. I know they did a good job against Colorado State, but Colorado State ain't on the same level as Michigan when it comes to quality of opponent here. But I just have a feeling. I know I don't normally lean heavy, where the game is played, but it should be rocking in Ann Arbor. Game day is going to be there. I have this one being close, man. We're going to find out. I'm a little worried about it and my prediction, as we've been on fire the last couple of weeks on these predictions. So, but yeah, man, I think it's going to be close. I think it'll be within a touchdown.
Chris, I want to ask you one question here before we wrap this up. Who has more pressure on them going into this game? Steve Sarkisian, obviously coach of Texas, or Sharon Moore? You know what I mean? A lot of shoes to fill there if you're Sharon Moore. Who is more of the, pressure on him going into this one?
I would say Steve Sarkisian this year. Reason why is because Texas is top 3-4 in every poll that you look at. They're supposed to be up there to win or compete for the SEC title this year. They probably got the more talented team, off the loss to Washington in the playoffs last year. Michigan, as we know, was in pretty much a whole rebuild, especially offensively. So I would say Sark in the Texas Longhorns. What's your thoughts?
No, I agree with that. I'd actually say they're kind of equivalent, but in different ways, right? So like you said with Texas, a 9-win season is going to feel like a failure. If you could win 10, 11 games this year, that would be pretty good, and that'll probably get you on the outskirts of looking at a playoff bid, I would say, right? But if you're Michigan, I mean, let's say this Michigan team kind of stumbles through the season, Texas comes in and waxes them. I mean, we understand like all the stuff that's happened and all the controversy and Harbaugh leaving and this, that, the other. But what happens if you're Michigan if you have a 6 and 7 win season after winning a national championship last year, right? I mean, Michigan fans, they've gotten a taste of success, and it's going to not probably sit right with them. I would have to think. So I think for both of them, it's the same amount of pressure, but in different ways.